All right, we're back at it on the SuccessFlow podcast, and today we're bringing it back to our daily lives, how we are making a living, taking it back to early in our careers, and not just for us, but mapping it to the current times that we're all going through right now. Referencing back to the VUCA episode, it's wild times out there right now, but it's also the time with the most potential and opportunity. So even though the noise is there and we are being bombarded with some very challenging information at the moment, we want to talk about selling and operating in economic uncertain times from a business perspective. So if all of our listeners, there's something to take away here, a little refresher. Everyone's in sales, no matter what your preconceived notions are of it. You are selling to your children, to your spouse, partner, your friends. You're selling every day. Whether you're getting paid commission on it, it may be different, but just try to open your mind from the perspective of how you are selling day to day, how you're operating day to day, and see if we can add some value during these tough times. So, Steven, I know we wrapped a little bit about it off, obviously during prep, but how are you feeling right now? And give me your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, this is a great topic, and I'm glad you gave the disclaimer of, you are selling, you are your own personal brand. Someone has a perception of you at every interaction that you have. And how do you want to leave that person when you have that interaction? Do you want to leave them with a positive perception or a negative perception? And so kind of I think what the point of the podcast is to share, B2B enterprise SaaS level sales, which is what we kind of grew up on. I've grown into B2B transactional type sales, not as long of a sales cycle. But what does like business to consumer sales kind of look like? And then from a personal standpoint, how do you make a positive interaction or make any interaction a positive interaction? So that way down the road, when that person you just had a conversation with or a meeting with, an opportunity comes across their way and they're like, oh, I'm going to think about Phil. And because of that month ago, we had a great conversation and he would really enjoy this. Like that opportunity may not have come if you didn't have, a positive interaction originally. So that's part of sales. I mean, essentially that's what it is. It's not manipulation. It's purely just, hey, let's solve a problem. Let's discuss things from an authentic level. Let's develop the relationship, and all opportunity comes from that.
Excellent frame up there. And we're also going to talk about how the cyclical nature of everything. We are in cycles. The world has been in cycles since the beginning of time, whatever your beliefs are there. And these cycles are built to maintain order. It is the macro ebbs and flows of how things work. And wanted to kind of start off by taking us back to honestly the beginning of our relationship. And we entered the business world in this type of environment. 08, 09 was tough out there. And I think when I reflect, naivety is a blessing sometimes, kind of like if you're starting your own business or starting anything new, what you don't know is probably a blessing, because we were working hard and, not compensated anywhere near where we are today in a really tough time. And it was kind of nice to just be learning then and be paid anything to get a business background and understanding in volatile times. And as we reference back to culture, MasterTax had the culture to allow us to do that and learn and focus on the controllables. That was well above our pay grade at the time. We got our marching orders and we were able to get through that time, but we really started our careers in that 08, 09 Great Recession. And taking it back, we were just, I was excited to be there and get my foot in the door, not knowing anything, but we were able to kind of start out in those tough times and we were lucky to do so.
Yeah, 100%. We were babies, dude. Like that was our first corporate gig. I think I was coming from an architectural firm, drawing lines all day, listening to, with music in my ears, which was great. But for like a year and a half, I'm like, man, I don't know. I got to get out and start talking to people. Like I can't just sit behind a desk and draw lines all day. So we both got hired on to MasterTax same time. And we were totally green. And it was just like, let's learn and be a sponge and do everything we can to try and be as successful as we can. But I always looked at it as like, hey, this is a resume builder. If it doesn't work out for me, at least I had the opportunity to say I got MasterTax on my resume and can use a sales position as leverage in my prior work history to move on to the next thing. But what MasterTax did do, you nailed it on the head, where it provided a culture for growth and learning. And one of the ways we did that was through Sandler sales training. It's an old school Sandler training method. And it was where we would meet with a different, another group was kind of running the program. And we would meet weekly or monthly, or I can't remember how long, but this is back when we had it was like audio sales type training you would listen to. And it was like on your iPod, right? Like this is before iPhones. Like it wasn't even like a thing back in at least I didn't have an iPhone back then. I think we were using Palm Pre's and Palm Trios and whatnot with all the buttons. Anyway, Sandler sales training though, that was where I got the foundation. And basically it was like going for the no. That was their shtick. Like going for the no and saying, hey, it's about, if I got 10 no's today, get excited about 10 no's. Like that's what you're going for, because you're going to get that one yes. And so it's not worrying about all the no's. It's worrying about how much activity can I put in and defining my pipeline and really scrubbing that list to find my target market and setting up my multi-touch campaigns. So specifically from an enterprise sales strategic type of selling environment, we grew up on multi-touch campaigns, and we grew up on grit, and we grew up on discipline, and just continue to stay after it and go for the no and be excited for the no's. And I remember we would talk about how many no's did you get today? And be like, oh, I got 20 no's today. Oh, how many yeses? I got 2. It's like, okay, well, if I didn't call 22 people, I wouldn't have gotten 22 yes or 2 yeses. And then I was able to move those through the pipeline. So it's just a mindset shift. And that's what I really appreciated about Sandler sales, was the mindset shift and teaching you how to really strategically move a prospect through the pipeline.
Excellent example. And that transitions exactly what I wanted to focus about in the main takeaway, that for our salespeople, or in any endeavor that you're in, but for salespeople in these VUCA times, which for a refresher is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, getting back to the fundamentals. And those fundamentals are: how much pipeline are you generating? How many conversations are you having? How many chances are you getting to provide value to your potential buyer? And as of right now, there is going to have to be substantial value with likely a business case tied to it, unless you are selling something that is completely required, and that's likely going to be more transactional. You're going to have to spend some serious time showing how you can either mitigate risk, create more revenue, or save time and efficiency, which is honestly typically very low on the totem pole, because leaders are asking people to do more with less. And that will kind of take us to the operational side. But with those fundamentals, you talk about the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle. 80% of your results are by 20% of your actions. And what is that 20%? And that's a day-to-day ruthless calendar look on what do I need to get done to get that 80% results. And it's 20% of your accounts, it's 20% of your conversations, it's 20% of the people that you are responsible for getting in front of, and relentlessly paring that down day in and day out. And that's kind of leads into the time management portion, which we talk about in this podcast. But as of right now, in this reactive environment with multiple Slacks and inbound, and God forbid you have social media up during the day that's not focused during breaks, you've got no chance to move high value revenue generating activities forward.
Yeah. And it's identifying what those are. Like, what is your, you're not selling just to sell. I mean, there is the thrill of the deal. Like, I think a lot of salespeople are kind of adrenaline junkies in that way, where they like seeing the ink dry on the paper and they're like, yeah, this is, I got the deal, this is closed. But the most successful don't look at it that way. They look at it as how they solved the problem. They look at it as what gets them jacked up is building a business case and truly making a difference for their customer. Absolutely. And showing them what that major impact your organization is going to have on their business, and watching them be successful because of the little piece of it that you were able to provide them. And once you have that mindset shift where it goes from transactional to strategic to personal, where you actually personally invested in like making sure that this customer is extremely happy in the services that you're providing, and they feel that when you're having those discovery calls and those conversations, and then you give them evidence. Right? You give them evidence by either sharing, maybe you're putting together a podcast talking about this stuff, or maybe you're putting together a newsletter talking about case studies, or maybe you're on social media and you're the one that's not consuming and you're creating and you're putting this stuff out there. And that's part of the multi-touch campaigns now, like email and phone calls And snail mail was kind of how we did it back in the day, but now it's a little bit more LinkedIn, social media, podcasts, creative ways of getting in front of people, private DMs on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, or text. But the phone call, I think, still wins out. You get someone on the phone and you can have that conversation. Now, obviously, you got Zoom and all that. We didn't have that back then. But at the end of the day, you're building the relationship to take their business to another level, and they have to know, like, and trust you. And now you have to build that self-brand and putting that to the forefront before they even have a conversation with you. They're going to want to know who you are and if they can trust you. Now, that can be either personal, you as the individual producer, or it could be the brand or the company that you work for, right? So like if you work for a large organization who already has that brand authority, then it's your job to bring in and back up that proof. But if you don't, maybe you're a small business owner and they don't know who you are, then it becomes personal. And you got to be able to get in front of people that way.
100%. And I think, to summarize what you said there, you have to bring data and empathy.
Yeah.
Bring data and empathy. And this has to be tailored to the folks that are feeling the pain so they can share it with the folks that are making the decision. And this gets complex. But if you don't have data and empathy combined in your outreach, prepared maniacally on how this impacts them and knowing their industry, it's homework. It's really living and breathing their business so you can bring a perspective. And that's what I see sellers not doing. They've got a process and it's, okay, pipeline generated, qualified the opportunity, ask a very standard list of questions, try to get them to a demonstration, shoot over a proposal, and hope that they're going to negotiate from there. But that's when everything stalls, because they haven't done the empathetic work of getting into the prospect's position and what they actually care about. That's the biggest chasm that I see sellers fail to cross. I know I didn't. I just ran the process. I was like, process A to B 7-8 years ago. That had to change, or you're not going to last very long, or you're going to be jumping around from business to business trying to impact and help people make better business decisions.
Those are the biggest pitfalls when you're just a robot following process. I mean, now we have the rise of AI, right? And things like that where people are going to leverage. And there is some pretty cool tools out there I've seen from like lead gen perspective of like, but at the end of the day, there's still people behind that have to build that empathy and build that conversation and build those problem solving bullet points. AI is going to at some point catch up and do some damage, but you're still going to need the people behind it that understand the business through and through the experience of what's actually happened, and how it's going to solve that problem. So pivoting from enterprise kind of SaaS strategic sales, going to transactional sales, obviously there's no it's not a long cycle. Usually it's like you can have this is like your one call close type of sales. It's not a world, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but not really a world you've been in too much. I'm not quite in that world. We don't have a ton of one call closes. But I think that just goes back to the personal brand, right? Would you agree that it's like people already have found you and already researched you and have already bought from you before they even reach out? And they reach out and it's like, bam, close. And it's almost more of a marketing tactic than sales. And I think it's all about your advertising and marketing and how you're perceived out there, which marketing goes hand in hand with sales. It's just a different animal. Is it more of a brand that you're building, or is it more of a, are you selling a service and a solution, one-on-one, human element? So I think it does make sense to talk a little bit about the marketing side. And what are you seeing from an enterprise level, like some of those big brands or people, leveraging their marketing strategies to bring in new sales?
Well, I think as you talk about more transactional sales, either B2C or B2B transactional sales, speed is your edge. It is going to be the urgency. If you're on a one call close, you have to qualify fast and hard, and you have to get to the root of the cause very quickly. And your human tone and your cadence on really getting them to think differently about their problem, what their experience and how it's going to look differently. If they select you to help them, you have to paint that picture so clearly and so quickly. It requires being extremely sharp. Do the homework you can, but you're going to have to be the ability to pivot within a conversation and figure out what is going to get them. How can you help them, and have them tell you that is the key. And I do think in a transactional sale like that, given the marketing that you described, that's going to qualify a little bit, right? So they have an idea of the value you bring, but you do have to script and systemize those conversations because likely the pain points are going to be similar. Mm-hmm. So you have your pivots ready, and then you have to create an urgency. Why, if you waste another day or another week or another month to take action on this problem, what does it look like? Get them feeling that future state. And they're only talking to you because they want change. And how can you show that you are the change agent for them? Or maybe you're not. And I think that's so important. Tell me how you can help me, or tell me why you're better than your competitor. I don't know that yet. We need to have a conversation.
Yes. And I think the biggest reason why people end up buying after that first call, if they don't buy on that call, is they're probably shopping, or they're probably looking around or whatever. But if you have a good follow-up game, it's never a no, it's always a not yet. So whenever you're going for those no's, you get that no, even if you don't get it on that first call. What's your follow-up game look like? Right? It's like, because most vendors or providers, if they're not following up with that prospect again, or that potential client again, it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, they're not going to reach out again. But if you continue to stay in front of them and your follow-up is on point, that's where the magic happens. So if you're like a small business, B2C, maybe you're in the trades, right? And you've got a ton of lead gen or SEO, and you're getting a bunch of leads, cold leads coming in. But a lot of times it's like, I have an actual issue. Like, you're a plumber, a residential plumber or something. Like, they have an issue. They got a leak in their house. They need something. They need someone to help. And either if they don't know your brand, then they're calling and trying to figure out which plumber they're going to use. And then you have that conversation, you find the problem, you fix the solution. Like, okay, thanks for your time. Thanks for the quote. I'll get back with you. They're not going to call you back because they're going to call the next guy to see if they're going to shop your quote potentially. And then if you make that phone call or that follow-up email and be like, hey, just want to check in on you and see if you had a chance to review that quote. Do you have any questions or anything we can do to help you? And you continue that follow-up, then they'll probably work with you. In those types of quick transactional things, you only have a small window. And if you don't close it on that first phone call, what's your follow-up game look like?
I'll challenge you on the check-in. I would say to everyone, never use the terms just checking in, circling back, even bumping this, which I still kind of use sometimes. You have to bring value in each interaction. And the way you build trust is while you're following up. Kept this on my desk forever by Jeff Shore, follow up and close the sale. Just as a reminder, if you're bringing value to them and showing them that their business is top of mind, even when you're communicating, now might not be the right time. There are little deposits of trust there that you're still contributing to them with nothing in return. This is back to your giver's gain. And that's your job, is to provide value. So when the timing is right and that alignment comes where there is urgency, a need, a fit, timing, then you're off to the races and you've built that trust and you have a partnership built. That's when beautiful sales are done.
All right. So let's talk about some pitfalls. How about when you've closed the deal, like the customer says, I'm in, and then you keep talking, or you give the proposal and then you like, but we can also offer a discount.
Shut up.
Right? That's rule number one.
You're spot on. Guilty early in my career of that. You get excited. You almost start oversharing. And then when you're with your overshare, once you've found that alignment, just stop. And then again, create the space for them to say, what's next? Guide them. But this is how the process usually looks. And then you firm up those next steps. And now we have a plan, a work back plan. This is what we discussed by this date. Boom, boom, boom. Mutual action plan. What are they responsible for? What are you responsible for? Like a flight checklist, we map to a close. And then the work really just begins, right? That's what I always like to say is now the fun part starts. Once the contract's signed, now let's get to achieving these outcomes. Your onboarding team gets involved. You're excited about introducing the onboarding team, the team that you're trusting to deliver on what you sold accurately and on time. And that's when the magic can start. It's a different experience, not just deal's done, moving on.
Now you're getting into my bread and butter, the operations side of things, because operations, the way we've always built our business was, we love sales. Sales and revenue drives the business forward. It allows you to invest back into the business, back into the team and all that. but retention is just as important as sales. I'd rather sell one and keep one than sell two and keep one in order to grow my business. So the retention piece, because every single client, every single happy customer is referring you to someone else when they've had an exceptional experience. So when you're focused on retention as well as much as you are on sales, like churn and burn, it doesn't fly in most cases, most businesses, because eventually, eventually the word gets around that maybe they didn't have a great experience. Now, everyone's going to have negative reviews in their businesses. Things happen. We all know that things happen. But how do you recover from that? What's the communication that you have with that customer if they left you a negative review or whatever? But when you have the operational side and you have shared the vision with your team and they're bought in and wanting to help the customer just as much as the salesperson is, we have a saying that says sales is out there educating and creating confidence. Implementation proves it and becomes the hero. And operations is the one that are developing lifers. And that's essentially what we're trying to build is a full cycle as a business operation from sales to implementation to support is one feeds into the other. And especially in the beginning, like that implementation process, that's where everything either comes magically together and it's a beautiful relationship for the life of the relationship, or everything falls apart and it's just one thing after another. It's just not going to work. Even though they may stay on for like 2 years, they're always going to remember their onboarding experience. And if it was clunky and it didn't work or things didn't happen, and maybe you reconciled it, but they're still going to have that sour taste in their mouth, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have that implementation experience coming from sales, because they're all excited and it's like, hey, this is new. It's a new product. It's a new offering. It's a new thing that I'm going to get involved with. And then implementation comes in and they really prove it and become the hero. And they gave him just such an exceptional experience, the warm and fuzzies, if you will, to the point where they're like, I just made the best decision in my business to be able to move to this vendor or this provider or this product or whatever. And then if something happens, like let's say something gets screwed up or something happens 6 months from now, they're not going to be they're going to be okay. They're going to be like, oh, okay, well, we understand mistakes happen. As long as you're obviously communicating and finding a resolution quickly and all that kind of stuff. But if you have a bad implementation experience, and then when that thing happens in 6 months from now, they may just be up. This isn't going to work for me, right? Yep. So it's crucial from that sales to hand off to operations. That period right there, when they're still trying to figure you out, and they want to believe what they were told during the sales process is actually going to be true. You can't screw that up. It's so important to get that part right. And then if things happen, mistakes happen, human error, there's all sorts of stuff in business and anything that can happen negatively. Again, you have a way of communicating and resolving and, being smart about it, but those things are going to happen. And the onboarding experience, if it was positive up front, customers are usually, hey, I understand things happen. If it was negative up front, they'd be like, man, you guys don't have it together. What's going on?
So true. And I think that ties back to just your personal life.
Yeah.
Non-sales, non-business. Do what you say you're going to do. I mean, we throw off a lot of kind of oversimplification, but that trust that doing what you say you're going to do to yourself and to the people that are impacted by your decisions really solves a lot of your problems. And it's when we don't do that, when we fall out of alignment. I think as we kind of wrap this up, I want to draw back to the economic cycles piece and that they are natural and inevitable. So where we find ourselves now is a cycle based on the decision making that we've made as a collective and as individuals. And it's what we do now in these times that make the good times better and that really make you grow. So essentially, this too shall pass if you're really going through it right now. But how you behave now defines you later. And thinking about that big picture, process over outcomes, who you're going to come out the other side of this is going to be based on the decisions you make today. Back to these fundamentals. And it wouldn't be the SuccessFlow podcast if we didn't talk about maintaining the asset, keeping yourself energized, healthy, and recovered to get through these times, because it requires more energy now. It just does.
I'm glad you brought that up and related back to the personal level, because it's so true. Whenever you bring on a new client or a new deal or a new product gets sold or whatever, you spent months, weeks to months, maybe even years putting together everything you needed to get to that point of that sale. Like, it's not like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to sell this and tomorrow you get the sale. It's just, It doesn't happen, right? So now is the time, if you're in a point in life where you're looking at a pivot or you're looking at maybe some stagnation or things are feeling stale or you're feeling like the world's coming down on you in a way, now is the time to figure out what are the things and the actions that I can take care of and probably most of it is just things for yourself, your health, your family, those around you. We're not talking about big changes. We're just talking about little changes that'll just eliminate one bad thing and implement one new good thing. Start achieving that identity shift, and then putting in the work towards what you want your future to look like, and just baby stepping it and just start compounding over time. So then a year from now, you're like, dang, I just got the biggest sale of my life. Sale in air quotes, new client. It's more of a new you, and it's the new direction of where you want to go. So if you're thinking about what, as you and I approach our 40s, and we have listeners that are in their 20s and 30s. We have listeners that are in their 50s and 60s and older, right? And so it's, what is the next 20 years of your life look like? Well, that starts now. Like, you look at issues that people are having in their 60s, it's from things that they were doing in their 40s, right? And so all of that stuff, when you start thinking about it and you look at the sales cycle from business, B2C, B2B, and you implement it into your own life, like, what's the outcome that I want 20 years from now? All of that work starts right now. And so it's figuring out how to get and map that out, how to get to that point, and just start the 1% every day.
So good. So good. Every downturn creates separation between amateurs and professionals. What are the fundamentals that you've been avoiding that are keeping you amateur over professional? Do some reflecting on that. Remember, this too shall pass, and shoot us any notes about ways we can help. We'll be back at you next week on the SuccessFlow podcast.